Good morning, slaves. When I'm in Rochester and I want to see burning cop cars, I watch Rochester in the Media, home of the motherfucking resistance.
We need police accountability. We must stop police brutality. Join us at City Hall. Justice for Hayden Blackman. Justice for all victims of police brutality, police misconduct, police harassment. Justice for Hayden Blackman. He was murdered by the police last week, 1 week ago today. A man was murdered by our police department. Demand justice. A little justice for Hayden. It's the least we could do. He's dead thanks to the Rochester Police Department. We want justice. We want this to never happen again. Called the commission, and that seems like a good step, but unfortunately the 15-member commission has 5 members of the police department on it.
Miss Good's statements to the officers, quote, "These are my friends. What's going on?" Her statement heightened the officers' concerns that she had some type of affiliation with these gang members.
And being very abusive. So this man has already proven to the world that he will violate people's civil rights. He should not be sitting on a panel to reform the police department or to consider how to let people complain about injustices that he helps perpetuate. So that's an immediate flaw. This commission is fatally flawed. This commission that is meeting here at 5:30 today, which was supposed to be last week, the commission's first meeting, they agreed to meet again October 13th. I know of one member of the commission, one of the very few citizens on the commission unattached to the police department of the government, who could not make it to this meeting because he's 2 days before the meeting. So they're not taking this seriously. This commission is not serious. It's not true accountability, and they're not even taking their mission seriously. We need a real accountability process immediately, because as this was being formed, a man lost his life. We need it already. This is tragic. Sisters and brothers, I'm here to support the action of this group. We are Rochester, Occupy Rochester. Mainly you think that we are for justice, for economic justice like healthcare, housing, and jobs, because this country needs jobs. But in this community, as well as the community across this country, there are police brutality.
need to investigate, and we need a commission that is a civilian, that has no connections with the authorities or the police. We need justice for this man. We need justice for our community. Justice that means jobs. Justice that means that we need not only a civilian review, but a community control of the police. That's what we need, is a community control of the police. As much as the people want jobs and housing and health care and food on their table, we also want accountability of the police.
My name is Davy. A lot of people may not recognize me. I've spent the last 50 years exposing the corrupt Rochester, New York Police Department and their long history of abusing and murdering innocent people. Hayden Blackman did not have to die at the hands of a white, trigger-happy, murdering, cold-blooded cop named Davy. You know what's sad? And I want any media that's here to turn around, just do a 180, and look at the city officials right out the door right now of the city hall. The hall of the police, the taxpaying people, as they laugh. And it's sad. I'm a Latino, like we left in the community of Latinos, beautiful place. And I always hate to bring out the race, but race has something to do with everything. And it saddens me that there's a black man inside those two doors right now that I've been observing for the last 20 minutes since I've been here. And he's laughing. An African-American male in the city of Rochester, New York, who is laughing at our cause here today. And let's break it down real quick. What is our cause? Our cause is that we're calling for answers. It doesn't matter what organization you're with. You don't even have to be in an organization. If you're a living, breathing human being in the city of Rochester, you should be perturbed and sickened and disturbed with what happened at 181 Columbia Avenue. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're not, the next time that you, as a citizen of Rochester, New York, call the Rochester Police Department for assistance, you may be calling a trigger-happy, ex-Marine, gun-ho, ready to hurt something, ready to kill something in your house, like they did to Hayden Blackman. You know what's sad? I came to the realization a long time ago. My father marched on these same streets in the mid-1980s. We're talking about just over a quarter century ago when Calvin Green was gunned down.
In the 80s, 30-year-old Calvin Green was shot 3 times at close range and killed by Rochester Police Officer Gary E. Smith. Green was unarmed. Less than 2 weeks later, a grand jury cleared Rochester Police Officer Gary E. Smith in the killing of 30-year-old Calvin Green.
An innocent man, how did you know they scared because he had some issues, unarmed, shot multiple times, killed. At the time, those that are from Rochester will remember Howard Relic, the DA, justified. And let's talk about justified real quick since I got the bullhorn here. Justified. They love that word. But you know what? It's sad. On Park Avenue in Girton Place, about 9 years ago, a young man named Craig Hurd.
On June 10th, 2002, 14-year-old Craig Hurd was driving a stolen car in Rochester's Park Avenue neighborhood. RPD officers cornered Hurd on this dead-end street. He was shot twice in the head and killed by officers Serge Savachev and Hector Padam. Hurd, an honor roll student at Charlotte Middle School, was unarmed. On July 11, 2002, a grand jury cleared Rochester police officers Hector Padam and Serge Savachev in the killing of 14-year-old Craig Hurd.
Lost his life again to 2 trigger-happy, Rochester, New York cops, David Pangan and Serge Savagev, who shot him each one time in his head. A 14-year-old boy who made the wrong choices, who hung out with some bad, I'm not going to say bad, but ill-influenced youth. And they stole a car, but he was scared. Like the late Reverend Gray said, he was scared on a dead-end street. Scared, unarmed. And guess what? Not only did they kill him, but the next day, on the corner of Norton Street and St. Casimir Street, a white, that's right, a white, and I'm making a point here, 20-something-year-old young man, high on huffing. You know what huffing is? When you inhale spray paint cans. It's really popular with a lot of people, especially on the West Coast. He took off when the police came. He hit several police cruisers, including state troopers, sheriffs, RPD. He hit a lady at an intersection, innocent lady going on her way to work. They chased him for over 25 minutes to the county of Wayne County. Guess how his ended? Guess how this case ended? It ended with road spikes and him learning his lesson and going to jail. But a young African-American male in the city of Rochester lost his life, like Bob Lansbury, who ridiculed him.
Some in our community added insult to injury with their mean-spirited and racist comments against Craig Hurd and his family. This letter, written by Bob Lansbury of WHAM Radio, was left at the street corner memorial for Craig Hurd on Park Avenue and Girton Place. In the letter, not only does Bob Lansbury wrongly blame Craig's parents, saying that there were no values, no love, but he also states that Craig was raised like an animal, cursed from birth. In one part, he writes Craig was genetically a man, but socially a wolf. And he goes on to say that young Craig wasn't loved from birth. Lansbury's statements, they are groomed as predators from their very earliest years, shows his racist views. Lansbury's comments are mere assumptions later proven wrong. He knows nothing about Craig Hurd or his family. Bob Lansbury's statements are meant to be hurtful. Comments such as bang bang, dead as hell, referring to the RPD shooting young Craig twice in the head, are repeated throughout the letter. He refers to the Hurd family's genuine pain over the loss of their loved one as crocodile tears.
Bob Lansbury, who people in the city need to start waking up to who Bob Lansbury is. A racist who makes a morning drive every morning from Mount Morris, New York, to Rochester, New York, and injects his sick and racist rhetoric over our airwaves and divides our city every single day. You know what? I don't know why I do it, but I always go on his website just to see what other sick stuff he's up to. And I just got done half hour ago before I left my home reading his latest comment. His latest comment is FUBO, which stands for Fuck You, Barack Obama. That is who we have every morning poisoning our airwaves and supporting cops like Randy Book. Like he said about Craig Hurd, bang bang, dead as hell. He joked about young Craig Hurd slumping over the wheel of the Dodge Stratus that he was driving. The RPD is corrupt, and it's got a long history of corruption. In 1984, Alicia McCullough, with a knife in her hand, in a domestic dispute, was executed by a white officer also.
21-year-old Alicia McCullough, daughter of then Executive Director of Action for a Better Community, James McCullough, was gunned down by Rochester Police Officer Thomas L. Whitmore. According to one neighbor, after having heard one shot, he looked out his window and saw Officer Whitmore standing over McCullough's body. He then witnessed Officer Whitmore firing a second shot into McCullough. Less than 3 months later, a grand jury cleared Rochester Police Officer Thomas L. Whitmore in the killing of 21-year-old Alicia McCullough.
You know what I read the other day? I read about how the New York Police Department became furious at a state assembly legislative act where they wanted to introduce a bill that was a no-kill bill, which basically would force the police to shoot, to wound, or to stop, but not to kill. And the NYPD was livid. They couldn't believe it. Why? Because they love to kill. Officer Book was not concerned with stopping Hayden Blackman. The thought, I assure you, the thought did not cross his mind. He shot at what the police are trained to shoot at, ladies and gentlemen, which is called center mass. Center mass is that part of your body just above your waist and just below your neckline. Why do the police choose this spot? Because they know that the shot will be fatal. It's sad, but I guarantee you this. Had that been a white man, holding that knife, he would be recovering right now with a gunshot wound to the leg. He would be alive right now. Not shot 5 times and hit 3 in front of his family, in front of his own stepson, who punched him in the face and disrespected his household minutes earlier when the police came. The Rochester, New York Police Department is corrupt. And it's a joke. Internal affairs is a joke. Explain to me how Officer David Joseph can violate a man named Theodore Lauria's rights in '94 and then do it to me in '96 and in '97. Explain to me how his brother, Nick Joseph, who you guys recognize the name, abused me, beat me, and falsely arrested me in retaliation for me videotaping David Joseph abusing a black motorist during a traffic stop. Explain to me why across the street I won a federal lawsuit against Joseph's brothers, David and Nick. Explain to me how Theodore Lauria won his lawsuits. And then explain to me, why are they rewarded with bad conduct? David Joseph was promoted sergeant of the Rochester Police Department after he beat me, after he falsely arrested me and my brother, after he kidnapped a man out of his house. He crossed jurisdiction lines from Rochester into another town. The stuff that I would do 60, 70 years behind bars, he did it to that man right there. He did it to that man. And he got promoted after they walked out one after the other when the federal jury, mostly white, just one black man on my jury, convicted him or found him guilty, I'm sorry because it wasn't a criminal trial, found him guilty of multiple civil rights violations. And Nick Joseph, what happened to Nick Joseph? We know what happened to him. Nothing. Internal affairs didn't do anything. What happened to Nick Joseph? You know what happened? He was able to transfer to the Greece Police Department with nothing on his record. Are you kidding me? This is a guy who across the street in a 2-week trial, even Judge Siragusa was shaking his head because the guy was a scumbag. And he was found he violated 16 of my civil rights. How can you even violate that many rights of a citizen? And then walk out with an all-white jury except one black person saying, this guy's a piece of trash, he shouldn't be on the force. So how do you get a job with Greece? How do you get a job with the Greece Police Department, ladies and gentlemen? And then, 8 years later, you're high on coke, and you're drunk out of your ass, and you're at Spenders all night, drinking with women and sniffing lines, and you're doing an 8-ball, and you get behind the wheel of a car, and you run into an innocent African-American woman who was pregnant, and you send her into premature labor. Explain that one. And explain how David Joseph, who has more lawsuits against him that have been won and or settled by the city of Rochester, explain how he is promoted to a sergeant. I'll tell you why. Here's the thing. Like Randy Book, the RPD wants people on the force that don't have emotions. Write that down. They want trigger-happy, cold-blooded, Marine mentality, shoot to kill, ask questions later, let a bunch of black and white and Spanish people duke it out later in a city hall meeting. I don't care. I'm shooting. I'm an RPD and I'm shooting. That man's got a knife. I don't care. I'm shooting. And I'm a killer. And guess what? He killed him. And guess what? He's right. You got a bunch of people pissed off about to go into meetings. And Mr. Blackman is dead. Explain that. And while you're at it, explain to me why a white man is alive with road spikes thrown out. And why a black boy is dead. Okay? And why Alicia McCall is dead. And while you're at it, explain to me why Calvin Green is dead. And here's the thing, and I'll pass the mic. You know what? All the victims I just named are black. And all the cops I just named are white.
So the police chief immediately condoned this